Hey, welcome to Geek Speak 14. What do you want to talk about, brother?
Beast Wars. Well, actually, not Beast Wars. So I seen the newest trailer for the new Transformer movie.
Yeah, yeah,
It's called Rise of the Beast,
yeah.
which basically is bringing in the 1996 version of Beast Wars. Remember the cartoon?
Yeah, yeah,
See, I didn't really get into it and watch it as much as my younger brother because my balls had done dropped and I was growing up.
yeah. And I'm proud of you.
Right. But I still found it amusing, especially because they made Optimus Prime a big giant gorilla and everything.
Well, when I saw the trailer, they had Optimus Prime,
Right,
but then they had a big gorilla that sounded like Optimus
right.
Prime. Is Peter Cullen doing both those voices?
I don't think so. I don't think Peter Collins even does the voice anymore.
Oh, yeah?
I think they came out with a new.
Some guy that does a good Peter Cullen imitation?
No, he don't even do a good
Oh,
imitation.
yeah.
There's commercials that came out, and they've got the guy from YouTube called the Blind Surfer that does voiceovers, and they've got
Yeah.
him doing the voice of Optimus Prime, and he's got a good deep voice, but he doesn't
Yeah.
have that Optimus Prime voice. I don't think he sounds like Optimus Prime. So
Yeah, I found out that Peter Cullen did the voice of Venger on Dungeons and Dragons.
right,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, he done a lot of '80s and '90s
yeah. So I'm
voices.
going to segue from that into.
Oh
Have you seen the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie?
no, I probably won't, just because it doesn't even remotely look like something that Dungeons and Dragons would be part of.
Well, the only criticism I have about it is, the costumes could have been a little more fantasy based. They were more modern. But hey, trust me, in my opinion, the movie is fantastic.
Oh, really?
I give it a 9 out of 10.
Huh?
I went there with no expectations whatsoever. I think you were the one who told me that you do that sometimes so that you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Right.
I went into it just because I was a Dungeons and Dragons fan, and I went with Teresa, and we both loved it. I mean, it kind of had fan service for the old fans. Little things they'd throw in, like they had some rust monsters up on some rafters fighting over a little piece of scrap armor. And I mean, that goes all the way back to the original Monster Manual.
Okay.
And then they had like a cameo of live action, the Saturday morning cartoon. They had that group in the background in one scene. And so, I mean, but it was really well written, and it was funny, and it had adventure, and the special effects were fantastic. I mean, it was incredible, and it's made good money, and the critics love it, and the audiences love it, and Hasbro needed a win, and they own the Dungeons and Dragons uh, license, and so I think we can expect there to be more in the future. Because I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but if you get a chance to watch it, yeah, check it out because I dare say you'll like it. So, so what else you want to talk
Yeah,
about,
so-
man?
All right. So at work, I get the privilege of doing orientation with all our new employees. And one thing I like to do is connect with people, and I like to say, what are you into? And of course, I get to tell them that I'm an old geek, and I'm into geek stuff. So one of them recently asked me, "What's the difference between a geek and a nerd?"
Yeah.
So what do you think the difference is between a geek and a nerd?
I mean, a geek would say that the Force is something George Lucas invented, and a nerd would say that the Force is mass equals acceleration. And I mean,
Right.
a nerd is more intelligent, more into book learning,
Okay.
whereas a geek just enjoys pop culture and science fiction and fantasy.
That's pretty much the way I put it. The one thing I would throw in as far as being a geek is that you can be geeky about so many different things. You can be geeky about NASCAR. You can be geeky about collecting baskets and candles. You can have a geekdom towards so many other things other than pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, I don't know if I'd call that geek is usually science fiction, fantasy, comic books, that type of stuff. I mean, fantasy football is really no different than Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't call those jocks geeks, not just because they beat me up.
Well, okay, it's not the jocks that's the geeks. It's the little guy with his jersey on, sitting in his house behind a screen or on a computer, sitting there coming up with stats for a team that he has nothing to do with, people he has no contact with.
Yeah. He's passionate about it.
He's a geek.
Just because you're passionate about something, I don't think it necessarily makes you a geek.
No, I do.
So we disagree on that. Yeah. We'll agree to disagree. Let's see. Picard season 3. So Picard season 1.
Ain't this supposed to be the last season?
Yes. So Picard season 1, I enjoyed it. Picard season 2 was horrible. I mean, I can't even describe how bad it was.
I watched the first episode.
So they handed the reins over to somebody else in season 3, and man, he did so great. He threw his hat on the ground, and he picked it up again. And he threw his hat on the ground again. No, I mean he went back and filled in some. I mean, you could tell he's a fan of the series. He went back, and a lot of the things that were brought up in the series and in the movies, he give them reason and purpose and touch base but one of the most important things, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that hadn't seen it, but if you're a Star Trek fan, you'll love it, especially a Next Generation fan. But he did something that should be so easy, but apparently people have a hard time with it. He got all 7 cast members who are still alive, who make up the main portion of the main cast of the bridge crew.
Okay.
He got them all on the bridge of the original Enterprise. Of the Enterprise D, the one they were in the show. And that was just such a good moment for fandom. And now you say, well, of course he's got all these actors together and he's making a Star Trek. Why wouldn't he do that? Disney didn't do it. I mean, they had Mark Hamill and Peter Mayhew and Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Anthony Daniels. They had all the main cast of Star Wars, and never once did they put them all together.
Oh,
so they kind of poo-pooed on their legacy characters, is what they call them. Whereas this was very, very respectful. Everybody had gone to different parts of their life, but they brought them together in a cool way. But the main thing is there was just one scene where they walk onto the bridge, and having that cast member on that set again,
right,
was just very nostalgic. Now, the criticism I have about the show and about almost all new science fiction, especially new Star Trek, is it's filmed so dark. I mean, I don't know if they don't want to put time in on the uniforms or if they just don't want to put time in on the sets. But I mean, there were some scenes where basically you just had faces in a room that were lit up, and you couldn't see anything behind. There's one scene where they're all sitting around a table, and they just must have had little lights on each face, and it's just like dark behind them.
I have literally went to the saturation on my phone and turned it all the way up. I was like, okay, am I getting old and blind?
Yeah.
Because I'm having to turn the saturation all the way up just to see what's going on in the picture.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Picard season 3, that was a win. So what else you got, brother?
So, it's been announced that in the new Deadpool movie, of course, Hugh Jackman's returning as Wolverine, but now they're saying that there is going to be a segment with the Hulk in it.
Oh, yeah?
Which kind of makes me hope that maybe that they'll end up doing like the Hulk 181 where had Wolverine versus the Hulk. I don't think he's going to be in his old costume or anything, but I think it would be pretty badass to actually see them clash. And the thing is the Hulk at this moment is the intelligent David Banner Hulk.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
So I'm wondering if they're going to make this like a different part of the timeline or a different universe, or how they're going to work it out. But that's if this is what they're going to do.
Yeah, what made Bruce Banner interesting was that he was a really smart guy and just a regular, normal human being. But then when he got angry, he turned into this big rage monster.
Mm-hmm.
And so a little bit like a werewolf, So, I mean, you got this guy that's in control, then he totally loses control, and may not even remember what he done while he was the Hulk. And so the whole intelligent Hulk, yeah, I mean, if you look through Hulk, through the MCU, the different Hulks have been in a different movie, he's just become more and more and more normal. Right. He just happens to turn green and have strength. And to me, that's not the appeal of the Hulk.
Part of his character.
Yeah, but I would love to see Savage Hulk
yeah.
go against Wolverine.
Yeah.
That would be that'd be great. Live action version of that. So I watched a movie the other day that had been on my list. There's so many geeky things that it's just hard to watch them all. And especially if you're going to have a life, which you should. But I never had watched John Carter from Mars, which is a Disney movie.
Yeah, I heard bad things about it. I haven't seen it either.
Well, the only bad things you heard was it didn't make any money. It just was a box office flop. And when you think of a movie you want to go see, John Carter of Mars, really doesn't stand out. But the thing is, the movie was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I enjoyed it. Teresa enjoyed it. First time I'd ever seen it. CGI still holds up. And I would recommend it to anybody.
When did it come out?
It was like probably 15
2000s?
years ago, something like that. Maybe, yeah, it was early 2000s. But see, John Carter of Mars was written by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who did Tarzan. And it was written in like 1903. I mean, he wrote that a long time ago, and it was a whole series of stories that went with this guy that traveled to Mars. And of course, back then, everybody imagined civilizations on Mars and all this stuff. And so, I mean, it's the movie's so well done. And to be honest with you, everybody's going off about Avatar and stuff like that. Right. I enjoyed John Carter of Mars better than Avatar.
Okay. Right.
And so, yeah, it's on Disney Channel right now, so check it out. So what else you got, brother?
So, you mentioned the Disney Channel, and there's so many channels geared towards the youth. Well, one of the very first channels was Nickelodeon. So this is coming out in April. So in April 1979 is when Nickelodeon launched, and then they closed their doors to the television channel in 2005, in April as well. So I think it's funny, 15 years before we had Cartoon Network or anything like that, there was Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon actually started as a educational thing called Pinwheel in '77, but it really didn't take traction until they turned into Nickelodeon. And I just like don't understand why, never have figured out why they stopped airing Nickelodeon. It kind of changed to just Nick.
Yeah.
And then it got picked up by a streaming service. But Nickelodeon, the channel, because they had Nick at Night and all that stuff, and then it just kind of faded away. And I don't know why that went away, because there's so many iconic characters that actually come out of Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my kids grew up watching it, which means I had to watch it.
Yeah.
So you had Rugrats and the Thornberrys and what were some other ones that you...
Well, it's actually a debate on who actually owns the SpongeBob license. Is it Nickelodeon or whoever it was passed on to?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, so my comic recommendation, I do a comic recommendation every Geek Speak. It has to be well drawn, and it has to be well written, and it has to be cheap. And so it's an alternative to a lot of modern comics that aren't cheap, aren't well drawn, and aren't well written.
There you go.
So this series is called The Sword, and it ran 24 issues. It had a beginning and an ending and one complete story. And it was done by brothers like you and I. They may not look exactly like us, but it was the Luna brothers. And so they wrote together and drew together, did layouts and the lettering and everything. They had success with a comic called Girls, but The Sword, without ruining it, is basically about a young woman who is in a wheelchair, and she finds a sword that gives her powers, including the ability to walk. So well written, so many surprises and twists and turns. I like their art. Each issue you could probably pick up for $2.50, which is like half the price of a new comic. and you can get them on mycomicshop.com. You can probably find them in Dollar Bin, but there's only 24 issues. I've read the series 3 times myself. Just got through rereading it in preparation for this. But if you have a female in your life, either a
Don't give her powers.
no. If you have a female, whether it be a wife, a girlfriend, a daughter, a sister, and you're into comics and geeky stuff, and she's not, have her read this. If she reads this and doesn't, this has been there's been a lots of women that become comic book readers because of this series.
Oh, okay.
And so it appeals not just to men because it has action in it, but these guys, they just really, really write female characters good. It's unfortunate because the brothers had a falling out several years ago on social media. One of them posted about how the other one bullied him, and they would go to cons together, and one was older and one was younger, and they had a lot of their arguments out on social media, which is never a good thing to do. If we're going to argue, we might argue.
Nowadays, drama's good stuff, man.
Yeah, but we won't do it on social media. But anyway, it drove a wedge in between them,
My beard's better than yours.
and they haven't worked together since, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
It's like they never have found the success apart that they had together, and so that's unfortunate. So it never happened to us, will it?
No.
So that's it. Are you done?
I'm done.
All right, man, we're done.
Take care, guys.